Hi, I am Scott Herbst. I am founder of Six Flex Training and Consulting, and you are watching The Flex, a conversation show where we talk with people who are expressing leadership with the intention of opening access to you expressing yours. I am really excited to introduce you to Rick Loewenstein today. And Rick is the founder and CEO of TeamGame Partners, and they're an agency that helps mostly ABA, applied behavior analysis companies, but other companies as well, uh, grow and scale and do so both sustainably, but also with a real focus on clinical outcomes. As usual, I'm going to let you hear Rick's story from Rick and shut up and say, Rick, welcome.
Great to be here. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity, and I know you've had some really great guests, certainly before me, that have shared their story. And so I appreciate it and am privileged certainly to be here. I started TeamGame Advisors about 6 years ago, and I've been in the disability space about 20 years. I've had this non-circuitous, non-straight line road to where I am today. And I know in our previous conversations, you were interested in hearing sort of the backstory, if you will. So not to bore you, but I'll take a minute or two.
Yeah, please.
I grew up in Metro Detroit. I went to Babson College and studied business there. That's now ranked as a #2 school by the Wall Street Journal as one of the best colleges in America. That's kind of cool. I don't know that I could get in today, but it is still cool. Anyway, I had an opportunity to live in Boston, and when I graduated, I started my career with Little Caesars back in Detroit in their marketing department, and stayed in the food business for the next 10 years to learn the food business away from my family business, which is in the poultry business. So I returned back to Detroit and joined the family business, and did that for about 5 years, and then had an opportunity to succeed the founder of one of the oldest and largest food banks in the country. That was my first foray into the nonprofit sector as an executive. And for half of my career from that point on, I was in the nonprofit sector. And had an opportunity to work again at Gleaners. But when I left Gleaners, I had an opportunity to work for an organization.
Food bank.
A food bank, yeah, Gleaners
Yep.
Food Bank. Sorry, it's in Detroit, one of the oldest and largest food banks. I succeeded the founder. It was an amazing ride and a personal journey for me, leaving a family business and actually, doing something that was in the food business, but that had a social impact mission. I stayed in the nonprofit sector and ultimately became the CEO of an organization called JARC, working with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in housing and supported living in the community. And that was really my first foray into the disability space, still in the nonprofit sector. But I
Did
also,
you make that transition? I'm curious. From
well, I
food,
had
where
a
I
st
imagine that a lot of your attention was, I don't just imagine, we had a conversation about this, but on like being a nonprofit, I imagine, how do we procure food? And then I imagine after that, like, how do we move food around and make sure it gets to people, right?
yeah.
How do you go from that to a very uh people-centered, um where it's like you're not moving food anymore. Now it's
Right.
weird to say moving people, but that's kind of what you're doing, right? Is like trying
Yeah,
to guide people through their lives.
it's very different. I didn't mention that I had a stop in between as a chief advancement officer for Cranbrook Educational Community,
Mm.
which is a national historic landmark consisting of a pre-K through 12th grade college prep school, 2 museums, which included an art museum and a science museum, and also a national, as I said, a national historic landmark home on 165 acres. So I went from the food bank, serving people that food insecurity was their number one need,
Yeah.
to an institution that was relatively affluent and helped lead a campaign to raise $150 million for a variety of things, scholarships, etc. But then I stayed in the nonprofit sector to go to JARC, this organization serving people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I would say, as it relates to this conversation, that leadership skills are transferable.
Yeah.
So I would take a leader any day and be able to put them in a variety of situations and they'll succeed because of their leadership ability. Some
Mm.
of this you can learn, some of the technical skill you can learn. Good leaders also know what they don't know and aren't afraid to surround themselves with people that are experts in the field that can help support the work that they're doing on a macro level.
Yeah. Can I just pause there and really underline that point?
Yeah,
Because I know that one thing that stops people, it's funny, just before you and I talked, I was in a meeting and we've got this group, we're putting together basically like a a pro-social, make a difference in the world type group.
sure.
And one thing that stopped me from taking action on getting this group together was I don't know, right? Like okay, I have this idea, but I don't really know how to execute on it. And what I really appreciate you're saying is that it's not the job of the leader to know. It's um about recognizing you don't know and then reaching out for support to fill in those gaps.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I think there's a level of confidence that a leader has to have to be exposed, if you will. Leaders sometimes are at a position where people, they see it as, oh, this person knows everything, and they should know the answers. And I'm a transparent guy. If I don't know something, then I have no problem in saying, you know what, I've never experienced that, but I'm certainly willing to find out and learn.
Yeah.
So, eh,
That's a really neat point. That's got me thinking about what confidence is. And again, I'm going to say this. I think that there's a misconception out there generally about like maybe confidence is having the answers. Maybe confidence is having it all together. Maybe that's where confidence comes from. What I'm hearing you say is that it's not that at all. It's actually the willingness just to be exposed and take what you get back.
absolutely. And my management style was always um, transparency, integrity, honesty, and I mean, that's in my opinion,
Yeah.
that is the only way to run an organization and to lead an organization. So we could talk more about that at some point. I do want to share that, and it'll get to your point on this trepidation to start. Um, when I was at JARC, I left JARC after 7 years. And during my time at JARC, I put together a joint venture with Centria Healthcare, and Centria Autism was just starting to get into the ABA space. And ultimately, I left JARC and joined Centria as their chief strategy and growth officer. And at the time, Centria was serving about 230 kids in Michigan. And over the course of the next 4 years, we grew to serve over 3,000 kids in 10 states. And the capital, it's not me. It was a whole
Yeah.
lot of people that had involvement. But as a chief strategy and growth officer, obviously I was involved in a number of different parts of the organization. But at 4 years when I left, I had a mentor of mine say, look, you're at a point in your career where you should think about becoming an advisor and start a consulting practice. and kind of freaked me out. I'll be honest. Didn't know if I had the ability to do that.
Mhm.
I know I had been a good leader. I had a lot of success. I have great contacts. I know the field. They said, all you need is one client. And my first client was Centria. And I finished up and worked on a project, and then I continued to get busy and so forth. And so there's this trepidation of, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I'm used to being in an organization where I'm part of a team or leading a team. I get a paycheck, on a regular basis, and not having that was is scary. But
Yeah.
again, a mentor said, "Look, you got this. It's now time. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work, and you go back and work somewhere."
Yeah. I love it. Hey, I am really curious. Something you said triggered something in me that it's the different experience between working for an organization where you've got a team and really a structure in place for your team, and people putting people around you, right? Like, you probably had people on your team you didn't necessarily hire. It's like there's an infrastructure there and then to going out on your own. But um I imagine, correct me, but I imagine that there was a transition there from being looked at and recognized as the leader within this infrastructure to now building a business that is going to uh, support and empower the people who have already built some infrastructure,
Yeah.
but empower them to really like strengthen it and firm it up and grow it. And that's a very different place to stand from, like, I'm the leader, people here recognize me, that, to now I'm empowering this person. What have you learned about leadership in having both of those perspectives?
Well, first of all, I think you're spot on. It's a different dynamic when you're responsible and you are making decisions with your team leadership, or it could be a board,
Yeah.
whatever that is, and implementing, and you're ultimately responsible. As an advisor, the best you can do is provide a sounding board and offer great advice based on my experience, my contacts, relationships, all of these things. But at the end of the day, I'm not the one that can do it. I, I'm providing the advice, so it's imperative that our clients are the ones that are implementing, and so it is a different dynamic. What have I learned? I've learned that a regular cadence of meetings with our clients pays off for both of us, meaning it keeps both of us accountable. It keeps the ball moving forward, and it opens lines of communication. We're always sharing data back and forth. And by doing so, you can see problems before they even become a problem,
Hmm.
and you can address issues and opportunities in a timely manner. So um, that's what I've learned. And it's taken me a little bit to not be able to have that control. You know what I mean?
No, I say more about that.
Well, you have no control when you're offering up your advice and so forth. It's like an attorney. If somebody calls an attorney asking for, hey,
Yes.
what should I do about this? It's incumbent upon the person who's asking to to either use their advice or not. So my wife, who was an attorney, I guess she is an attorney, um, would have these situations, right? And somebody would call her and ask for advice or whatever it might be. She'd give it to them, and they may not take the advice. And then they're calling her later and say, okay, well, how do I get out of this? So point being is, you don't have that control of
Yes.
implementing
Now I know
what.
exactly what you mean. I deal with that as a coach where,
Right.
you know, I have meetings with let's say it's a small group coaching session, and the meeting seems to go great and people are like, yeah, lead with clear actions, and then I have no idea if they're taking them, right?
Right.
Until we meet again. Um and then of course I say, tell me how it goes. Like if they say, I'm going to talk to that person right after this, I say, tell me how
Right.
it goes. And they say, yeah,
Yeah.
well, and 3 out of 4 times they don't. Uh,
Yeah.
but that's awesome. I I want to dwell on that a little bit because I think that's really useful advice for anyone. And the advice being regular meetings. So even
Yeah.
within that infrastructure that of like, okay, I've got a company, like if you are just taking on your first team and you've gone from like I was part of the front lines to now I'm managing my first team,
Yeah.
that is really critical to have regular and predictable contact with your team.
Yeah,
And
I think so. And there's a lot of ways to do it, Scott. I think. I
yeah, talk
mean,
about
look,
that.
there's some teams would have a daily meeting, a daily stand-up meeting. Standing up meetings are great because then nobody's going to really drone. You got 15 minutes as a touch point, kickoff. Some people call them a huddle, whatever it might be. But the idea of starting your day as a team, whether it's by Zoom or in person, to say, okay, how'd we do yesterday? We said we were going to do ABC yesterday. How'd we do? And then, what do we want to accomplish today? And any problems that anybody had along the way, let's resolve the problems and issue, and then let's move on. Some people may not like those daily, a daily stand up 10, 15 minutes. But a weekly meeting, I think, is really important. And I will share that every leader should have an agenda before that meeting because it keeps everyone focused. But again, a weekly meeting, here's what you're going to talk about, whatever those items might be. Performance from last week, challenges that you have now, what does the future look like, or what are we going to accomplish over the next couple of weeks. But having an agenda as a leader puts you in the leader in the driver's seat to say, I'm in control. I know what I want to talk about and what we want to talk about. And it keeps people focused. So, and I'm a big believer in all company meetings when you can do it. If you can do it, a couple times a year for sure. Quarterly, there's some companies that do them, and there's just a great opportunity. I'm a big, big believer in open lines of communication. Okay, you learn a lot. You are exposed for sure because you may hear some things that you don't want to hear, but at least you're going to hear them. And um, it just, I think transparency and leadership go hand in hand.
Yeah. Couple points. Let me mention them both so that we can remember to get to them both. One, I want to talk about you said something about like a regular cadence for meetings, a lot of ways to have them. But then you mentioned a few things to highlight, and I want to step back to those. The other thing I am really interested in, and I don't want to forget, is you mentioned sometimes you have to hear things that you don't really want to hear. And so I want to touch base on that and hear what you have to offer in terms of um, welcoming those things to keep lines of communication open. So hold that thought. So I
Got
want
it.
to just bounce back because you said something I think is pretty important about in these regular meetings have an agenda, and
Yes.
the things you said to have on the agenda are things from our last meeting, challenges we're facing going forward and what to look out for. And then there was a third, and that one escaped me.
Well, looking forward on what do you want to accomplish either for the week or, hey, how are we doing against our quarterly goals or whatever that might be. It's, it's a look back, a look into the present. What are we having a challenge with, and a look forward. And if
Yeah.
you at a macro level sort of use that template, if you will, the content in that template will be almost obvious.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great. I think I'm guessing that if we went and interviewed 100 people who say that their meetings are at their company are a waste of time, that one of those things is missing. One or more of those things is missing.
Yeah, it may be, and it also may be the amount of time. Can you do an hour meeting in 30 minutes? Or can you do a 30-minute meeting? Like, does it have to be an hour?
Right.
Does it have to be an hour and a half? I don't know. So, and the question is who should be part of it? Those are always other questions. Do you want your direct reports or leadership team involved? At what point do you cast a wider net to include middle management? At what point do you cast the wide net to bring the whole company in? Whether it's, your behavior techs, if it's an ABA company, your frontline team, whatever it might be. So I think there's a time and a place for all of that.
Awesome. Talk a little bit about how you keep the lines of communication open, and how do you welcome the feedback that maybe you don't want to hear, and people probably to some degree are aware you don't want to hear, and so then therefore might not want to bring forward.
Yeah. So there's a couple ways I look at this. We're working with a client right now that did some employee surveys, and they were sort of all across the board, right? They ranked high NPS. Yes, I would refer this organization to friends and family, really high. And there were some comments that pointed to a couple of challenges within the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing I said to the owner was, first of all, these comments, people took time to write these comments. Okay. And they were lengthy comments, and they were well thought out comments. So in my opinion, that is positive. Yes, you don't want to hear all of it for sure. But guess what? These are people that care, that have the client and the company's best interest in mind, and they're willing to share through their vantage point what they feel. That's
Yes.
positive. So the fact that you're even opening yourself up as a leader, to me, sends a positive message that I'm listening. The next step is, what do you do with those comments? Okay, you have the option to recognize the good ones and not recognize the bad ones. Or, in my opinion, you have an obligation to share the good, the bad, and the ugly. Hey, this is what we heard. This is what you're telling us. And this is what we're going to do to address these issues, if in fact you want to address them. There's some that you may not want to address. But then the most important of that is the communication loop, sharing with them, those people that gave that information, sharing with them what's the action plan, and then the follow through. That's the key. So whether you're going to, you have 5 items, whether you're going to address them all, no, we're going to address these 3 items, and we're going to keep you informed of how that ends up. So again, there are things that you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
So you just have to be willing to also have a little bit of thick skin as the leader, right? But for the most part, I think it shows transparency and open lines of communication and follow up, and is all really important.
I think what you said is really useful And the first piece that I'm pointing to is that if someone is bringing something forward, that that's a demonstration of caring. And
Yes.
and
I agree.
that um I'm relating to that to my time as I was a professor, and I actually still deal with this in facilitating and training. Um I've learned personally to love it when someone is like irritated with me and asking questions and kind of challenging me a little bit. Um, and probably when I first started teaching, I really found that like kind of threatening, like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
But I learned to see not like, oh, wait, no, this person is really invested in the material and really cares. And the frustration is just that there's something they don't understand. And when I learned to look at it that way, like I could relax and appreciate this person,
Mhm.
and that was a big shift in my ability to actually just manage a room. And so I'm hearing there's a shift in just generally towards leadership, that if someone complain, however they complain, whether it's through a challenge like channel of um an employee survey, or someone complains to you about something in the organization, that somewhere there's some caring there.
Right.
And probably if you can pay attention to that versus however it manifests itself in the grumpiness or whatever, that that will probably create more of a welcoming environment.
Yeah, I think also, to your point, I don't know if empathy is the right word,
Yeah.
but understanding the why someone is saying what they're saying through their lens, right? And we all get caught up in our own worlds, right? From our vantage point, and it's not very often that we stop and say, okay, I'm thinking it from this other person's point of view, um, and the frustration that they may be having because the system goes down. Somebody in HR didn't get back to them with something, through their lens, what the why. And, that may temper sometimes the response, that your first knee-jerk reaction is, what are they talking about? So, again, it's understanding their vantage point as well. And I think that's a part of being a good leader as well.
Absolutely. The next thing I want to go back to and what you said is, I am curious, what do you do when someone brings something forward and you look at it and what action we can take, and right now you're not going to do anything about it?
Well, I think, first of all, acknowledging it,
Yeah.
that you've heard them. Two, not that you have to give a reason why you're not going to deal with this, but if it falls outside of the scope of your core responsibilities, um, company goals, mission, anything that is not going to help the organization or ultimately the people that are being served, the customer, however you want to do that, then saying all those things, this is not a core focus of ours, or this is not something that we're going to look at in the next 6 months. We'll revisit it, but right now, this is not a key focus for us. And that's it. If it's enough for somebody to part ways, um, then you never want to lose good people or people, but if there's a difference in mission at that point, then you just wish them luck and have them move on.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that you be really straight and open with people about
Yeah.
not just what you're going to do, but what you're not going to do. And in considering whether I'm going to do something or not, be really deliberate with how does this fit with our longer term goals, mission, etc., as an organization.
Yeah. The one thing I learned in half of my career in the nonprofit sector is the importance of the mission and the focus on the person that's being served, like
Yeah.
why you are even in existence. Okay. In at JARC, we were in existence to serve people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and give them the greatest life possible um, throughout their lifetime. Okay. Um, for at the food bank, we're focused on feeding people that have food insecurity. How do we make their lives better, get greater access to nutritious food, and so forth. So in the ABA setting, it is how are we going to focus on the outcomes, having the people that you're serving, the children and their families, have a better life. And that's the focus. Anything that doesn't meet that particular need, I'd be hard pressed to want to move mountains if it doesn't do that.
Yes. Awesome. Awesome. Um, we don't have a ton of time left. And I am curious though, because you've moved into this role where it's now I'm less driving the ship and more a trusted advisor to those building and driving the ship, often at the same time, right? Um,
True.
what have you seen? What have you seen owners, executives, etc., struggle with? And what advice can you give as someone who's been there?
So the question is what have I seen from a leadership standpoint? What do they struggle with?
Yes.
Everyone's so different. How much time do we have? No. Some companies are undercapitalized, so funding, and is a challenge. Some
Mm-hmm.
have receivables issues, some have issues with low reimbursement rates and wanting to renegotiate rates. Staffing is always a big challenge. Obviously, that in the field. Turnover and just attracting and retaining quality talent is a challenge. Competition in some areas from large national providers when some organization may be a small local or regional entity. Those are some challenging issues. um, at the end of the day, my philosophy is quality rules the day. Okay. If you have a quality organization, quality product, then you're going to attract good people. You're going to attract families that want to be served by your organization. You will be in good standing with payers. And there are a lot of positive things that come when quality is at the core of everything. It's interesting. We work right now, Dana and I do, on clinical and operational performance, with our clients, clinical and operational performance, new market entry and new growth, payer relations. These are all sort of things within an organization, and different leaders have either different deficits or different challenges. And that's why they bring us on to help lift that and support their work in that area. So, we've had providers where the leader isn't a BCBA and they need to better understand what does clinical performance quality look like? What
Yeah.
are the key performance indicators I should be focused on a weekly basis? What should I be looking at to help me build my practice? So that's it's just so varied, Scott, but I'd say it's probably within everything I just said.
I'm glad you brought that up. That reminds me of something we talked about before we started recording. You had mentioned in our previous conversation, and you mentioned it here, a focus on payer relations.
Yeah.
And I know one in the world of applied behavior analysis, and probably a lot of healthcare, there is a natural tension between the people receiving services,
Yeah.
the business, and then the people who are paying for it, which are insurance.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it's like the more resources you give them, even though it's their job to help provide those resources, the more it hurts them. So there's kind of like insurance companies are almost the enemy in a sense, right? Even though they're funding our services.
Right.
And so you mentioned previously how you will coach or work with people to look at how they can not just take funds from insurance, but actually work to make their job easier.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit about that. And I'm really
Sure.
interested in how could we apply that type of thinking to other situations?
Well, our feeling is that right now, most providers in really across healthcare, they have a transactional relationship with the payers. It's a transaction.
Yeah.
Okay. The provider provides the service. They then bill the insurance company, and the insurance company pays, or they'll reject it, or whatever it might be. But it's completely transactional with no human element involved. And we believe, and we've had a lot of success in helping providers build a professional relationship with the payers. And it gets back to our previous discussion and comments about what it does is it opens lines of communication. It allows problem solving to occur before it becomes a problem. Hey, why is it taking 6 months for one of our BCBAs to get credentialed? Okay. When we build a relationship with a payer, if it's a month and a half or 2 months, we know we can call a person and say, hey, what's happening with this? Something's wrong. Let's get it done. So it opens lines of communication. It also allows the payers to share with providers some of the things that are important to them. What are important to payers? Access to care. They want quality providers that the families aren't calling complaining, and they want help in some areas that may be BCBA or ABA deserts. So, there's an opportunity for each to help each other. And the only way to do that is to begin to develop that professional relationship. Okay. Reimbursement rates are part of that discussion, but there has to be some trust between the two parties and information sharing to allow that to happen. A provider can't just call up a payer and say, I haven't had a rate increase in 2 years. I want my rate increase. A payer is going to say, okay, show what kind of quality do you have? Show me your, show me your supervision, your utilization, all these different things that they want to see. So it's changing the dynamic from transactional to professional and relational.
Yeah. And it sounds like it goes back to your prior point about part of this process involves taking the perspective of another. So going back to that person who's bringing the complaint, like try to get their perspective. Where are they coming? What are their concerns? What are they interested in? What's having this show up as a complaint is doing some work to actually look from the payer's perspective at beyond saying no to us, which I think is where people reflexively go. Like what
Yeah.
is their concern and what is their interest and what is their mission, right? Again, going back to making decisions that are consistent with a mission. Like,
Yeah. We had a call with a payer the other day, and one of the we're with our client, and our client was showing some clinical data and some additional data, one of which was clean claims. And the payer was thrilled because their clean claims was like 100%. Okay. Why would that matter to a payer? Because it doesn't gum up their system and their flow, right? If you're going to submit a claim, a provider's going to submit a claim and it's, whatever it is, the report's incomplete or what, it has to go back, and it's more staff time. So payers looking to say, these are the people that I want to be with because I know I don't have to double check and triple check, send it back, kick it back out of the system to have to come back into the system. So those are that's just a small example of what's out there.
Thank you. We are about out of time here, Rick.
Bummer.
About one question I just love to ask everyone who comes on the show is, what are you proud of?
Wow, does that stump people?
Yeah, sometimes.
I guess what am I proud of? I'm proud of the work that I've done professionally and personally to make an impact in the lives of a lot of people. And as a result, the communities in which they live. And hopefully that translates to a better world. I know that sounds kind of cheesy, Scott.
I love cheesy.
I am.
Cheesy's the best.
It's kind of cheesy.
I'll be more cheesy.
Yeah, but I'm proud of that, and
Awesome.
I'm just I'm proud of the work that Dana and I have done. We've been married 43 years, and we've been business partners for 6. That could be a whole nother conversation, but it's been a remarkable journey to do that with her, and it's been very, very special. So
awesome.
I'm proud of that.
Thank you. And then my last question is, how do people reach you?
They can go to our website, teamgameadvisors.com. I can happy to give my phone number if you want. What you tell me. But Team Game Advisors
if they reach you through your website, you'll respond.
Yeah. Or Rick. Yep. Or Rick at teamgameadvisors.com. ADVISORS.com. And that name is not an accident. Sports and athletics has been a very important part of my life. And we've learned that success is completely a team game, that nobody has gotten anywhere in life without the help of somebody else along the way. So that's our mantra. It's a team game.
Awesome. Rick, thanks so much for coming on the show. Thanks for sharing your story, your insights. And thanks for being someone who is up to making a difference in the lives of people. I
appreciate that. Thank you so much, Scott. I really appreciate you having me.
My pleasure. And for those of you who are watching, thank you for watching and listening and giving us a few minutes of your time. This concludes this episode. As usual, give us a 5-star review, click the like, drop us a comment, and we will see you here the next time on The Flex.